Frustrated that you're not climbing despite putting in all the hours? You're not alone. In this video, I'm going to share some proven strategies that will help you break out of that rank plateau and make a huge difference in your games. And if you hang out until the end, I'll even give you one of my favorite methods for avoiding loss streaks. I'm Bach. I'm a former Cloud9 coach, and I love turning difficult gaming concepts into strategies that anyone can use. So today, I'm here with Grant, a student of mine that I've helped get from Iron all the way to Emerald, and he's going to help me prove that these systems work. Were you Iron or Bronze as like a support player?
Yep, Iron Pike days.
And now you're a Emerald jungler. And then you went to top lane for a bit too. So you're Mr. Worldwide. I love it. You are looking for a session where we lay out what a practice regimen would look like for your personal progression, something like a path of glory.
I've competed at high levels in different sports. I was a international level swimmer. And to get from good to great, there's a lot of minute things that you have to do to be better than everyone else. So I feel like in League, in my journey right now, I've gotten kind of the good state. Emerald's not like the epitome of League, but it's better than the average player.
Okay.
And when I've gotten kind of stuck here is finding those little things that make me great. So I was just wondering how I can drill in things and what little things I need to be looking for to get to that greatness that I'm looking for.
Okay, I think that's like a fair assessment. You're not coping out of your mind either, by the way. I think step one, I want you to acknowledge how big of a jump there is from where you started, like Iron or Bronze to like Plat Emerald. Like that's massive. That's a huge jump. So it's always good to hunger for more, but also like don't forget your roots. Don't forget where you came from. So I'm proud of the progress you've made. That being said, you are also at a spot where the game starts to get different because you will get punished for the things that you were doing at lower ranks. Maybe the practices or like the champs you play or the ways you play those champs are not going to work the same way as you continue climbing in rank or as the meta shifts. Totally fine, totally acceptable. And I don't think you're coping by saying like you're now a good player or above average player, I would say, because I think most players are in like the gold through platinum range, even after the rank shift. I think that like a solid amount of the players. So that being said, the first thing that I recommend anyone who's serious about improving does is create some sort of structure for their improvement. So what do you currently do to track your improvement, or like what do you do so far?
Mostly it was just looking like, is my win rate positive or negative in the last 20 games? And if it's like really negative, like I've lost a crap ton, I'll probably spend a day or two just looking over what was different from what I've been doing to what I was finding success with. So like if I got all the way to Platinum 1 and then I got all the way down to Platinum 4, something in my thinking has changed. So I would be looking at those. And I think that was a pretty easy indicator. For a while, I was like a one trick with Lilia. I wanted to expand my knowledge of the game because I felt like I didn't we talked about this lots before, but I felt like having a small champ pool, but not like a one trick was better for learning the game. So I would look at champion win rates too and see like what resources I could find to improve and learn more about different champions and then a little bit of different play styles.
Okay, so you said a lot here. Let's break this down a little bit. Let me pose a hypothetical to you. Let's say you do play 20 games. Let's say you win maybe 5 out of those 20 games. Does that necessarily mean that 15 of those games you played irredeemably bad?
No, I mean, it's SoloQ. There's definitely a bunch of inters. But mindset I've kind of adopted is like if I truly want to be like a master player, I need to be able to learn how to kind of carry these Emerald games. I mean, obviously, if my support and my top laner and my mid laner are all running down mid, I can't change that. But if my top laner is just trying and is 2-8, I want to be able to win those kind of games because Owner would be able to carry those games or Icelandic Hero would be able to carry those games. So it's just wanting to be better. Even if I'm not at that level now and I can't expect it from me right now, I want to be able to be there.
Okay, so what I heard you say right now, I don't think contradicts what I just said. So it's important to have the mindset that as a player, any loss, you should look at it as I could have done something different to affect the outcome of this game. But what we have to avoid at all costs is saying, we lost this game, therefore I played bad. Or we won this game, therefore I played good. Neither one of those is necessarily true because what we're chasing right now is not rank. We are chasing improvement on specific skills. So the reason why I stress this, a lot of players get ranked anxiety or they get burnout or they get really tilted because what they are playing for is that victory screen at the end of the game. And that, I mean, obviously is the ideal. Like you want to win the game, but because of like what you said, you will have players on your team that are inters. That has no effect on your performance in the game. So you should also make sure that has no effect on how you view your own improvement in the game. So if you focus on winning or losing, you will get much more upset or much more tilted, or maybe not even want to grind as much because you're focusing on an outcome that is not directly related to what's within your control. What happens if you queue up and all you care about is winning and you do get 4 AFKs on your team? Very rare to happen, but now all of a sudden you're angry, but maybe you have a right to be 10% angry and you're like 90% angry. So what I advise to focus on is every game or every block or maybe every week, you go in with a very specific idea of, I am going to focus on X thing. This could be one of the things you said below. You were a Lilia one trick previously and you wanted to expand your champion pool. So now you're trying to add, I'll say like a utility jungler, maybe like a Zac or an Amumu or something, right? So what you're focusing on for this week is, can I reduce the clear time of my jungler so I'm able to be on the map more and actually do what utility junglers want to do, which is gank and affect the map, not permanently be farming, always be behind, always like slowly bleeding out the game. So even if you lose these games when you're learning these champions, you can evaluate by saying, hey, look, my clear is going down in speed. Hey, look, I'm getting off more successful ganks. And there are other things you need to work on, but you're making progress. And that is a good thing, whether or not you win or lose the game. So I do want to like shift your perspective about that a little bit, but I don't think that comes in stark contrast with saying, yeah, dude, every death is your fault. Every lost game or even one game, you need to look and say, hey, what could I have done better? Totally healthy. Just keep that in mind. So, but yeah, tell me a little bit then, while you're learning these new champions or these new play styles, what have you noticed, like the good and the bad, as you're trying to adapt?
I mean, so I had been learning the game, just full clearing a whole lot, and it was really OP for a while. I mean, it's been the meta for a while.
It still is the meta.
It still is the meta. It's shifting a little bit out, but I mean, yeah, it's definitely still the meta. But I mean, with competitive, it doesn't really cater to most people. So I wanted to learn how so I could be a better player for my team. So I was learning, and the kind of like big like archetypes I've found were like there's like the Viegos and Zhao Wukong that are like skirmishy, and that's the one I've been focusing on a lot right now. I'm playing a lot of Viego and SoloQ.
Yeah.
And then the other ones that I struggled a lot with was like just like the full tank, something like Skarner, Sejuani, Maokai. I did find some success with Poppy, but I mean it's a similar thing. So that really opened my eyes to like how different the game can be and how like narrow my mindset had been, especially with the full clearing, because my teammates in like VOD review would be like, look, you could skip these Krugs and it'd be an easy double kill for us. But when I'm playing solo queue, that's not something I really thought about. It was, man, I can get these Krugs and I can get Scuttle Crab and then I can get Dragon and then we're going to win. So it's just opened my eyes a little bit, and yeah, definitely a mindset shift.
This is always like the bane of any competitive player's existence, because when you are playing with a 5-stack in competitive, you have the bonus of having comms, or you have a set game plan. Like, okay, guys, we're opening the map. We are going to play the first 3 minutes of the game for this X specific outcome. Maybe we're playing to invade. Maybe we're playing to gank bot. Maybe we're playing to get good resets so we can come out the map and set up for Dragon when it spawns, right? In solo queue, it's literally everyone is on their own trying to maximize their own gold income for their best personal outcome, right? So maybe in solo queue, the correct answer is, yeah, dude, I'm not going to coin flip a shit play. I'm not going to drop my Krubs to do that, because then I'm going to be late for Scuttle Crab, or I'm going to be late for my camp resets, or I'm going to miss a timer to buy items when I should be. So, but in comp, it's like, hey, they're stacking a wave. They're coming bot lane. Like if you come right now, their jungler should be almost here. If you drop Krug, we like win the game here. But that's the difference. So it's a valid question, and it's unfortunately not super easy to make a generalized rule for it, but just be aware that there is a difference between solo queue and any sort of organized play. But you did mention that you were having struggles with full tanks. Is that because you didn't want to drop camps, or was there something else about the champions or that style of champ that made it difficult?
I mean, I kind of did the opposite. I was like, man, Sejuani, she's really good at ganking, so I'm going to gank a whole lot. Yeah, same thing with like Poppy. I didn't do so much with a Mumu. I was put on a Mumu duty a lot, so I got okay with that. But I would gank and a gank and then gank and then gank. Like I was playing Nunu and Will Up, because I see Kesha and he ganks a lot. Yeah, the FlyQuest champion. It found some success, but it wasn't as effective as if I was watching like an ERL player playing Sejuani. Like I think some of it came with like coordination, just because I don't know, we were like a newer squad. I wasn't able to look at the map and like predict where people were going to be as easily, because like when I was full clearing, I had 30 seconds to do my bot side and then know where they were going to be, and that was a pretty easy like way to jungle track. But with like when people are playing these champions that could be anywhere because they don't mind skipping their camps as much, like jungle cracking became harder. Yeah, just like where I should be became a bigger question that I couldn't answer. And as a jungler in competitive play, like you're kind of spitting out where people want to be. So there was definitely some crumbling there.
Okay. what you might be speaking to might actually be two issues. One issue, I'll give you affirmation here. You could just be not, I don't want to say not using your brain, but like not actually actively thinking enough. That could be that could be one part of it. So when I say like not thinking enough, you have the info available, but in the moment you aren't like thinking about it actively. This could be part of it. The other part of it is you are in a lower elo bracket. So players will not play the game correctly all the time. So the way I like to explain it with some sort of like jungle tracking or jungle, I'm going to pull out the good old Rift kit here, dude. Holy. So if you're playing a farm style champion, you will, I mean, every jungler in the game has a jungle path, but what is your goal as a farm style champion?
Clear my camps and then find the next objective.
I mean, I would even say that second part, that's like a secondary factor. Farm style champions will honestly oftentimes not do objectives at all because it's time.
I'm not saying like the specific objectives. It could be like the enemy's grump or a gank or even like just like a scuttle crab could be our next objective.
Okay, so you're using objectives in like the same way I would use objectives. There's like these neutral objectives, and then like a tower can also be an objective, or a dive can be an objective. So yeah, no, I agree with that. But I would even go so far as to say farm style junglers, the only way they are doing anything other than farming, at least for the first couple of clears in the game, is if they have literally no camps up on the map at all, and they are on the side of the map a play is happening. That's it.
Yeah.
But utility style champions play the game a little bit differently. So when you farm these 3 camps for your first clear, like what options do you have available?
I mean, do we have vision on the jungler starting?
Oh, just all hypotheticals available right now. Just all hypotheticals.
Okay.
What options do you have in a perfect world?
We could gank top or mid because we're on that side of the map if it's looking real good. We could invade their top side if we know that we're stronger, or we have prio in either of our lanes. We could continue our full clear down. Yeah, I think that's all good.
Yeah, no, I think that's great because if you're a full clear style champion who prioritizes farm, you have a break every time you clear 3 camps, right? Because you have to cross over, or you have the option to do something else on that side of the map in that time. All utility champions mean so far, or all you need to concern yourself with right now is you have an extra chance, or maybe even 2 extra chances to affect the map compared to somebody who only cares about efficiently cycling their camps as much as possible. So imagine think of it as like an allowance. Sorry. Think of it like an allowance, right? You do all your chores, aka farm the topside camps. You get a little treat. You can do something, okay? But now you can't do everything. You choose one treat, and now you farm your other 3 camps. Okay, cool. Maybe you have time for like another small little treat, but then you still have to reset, right? You can't take infinite treats from the candy bar. This ain't Willy Wonka. This ain't Charlie's Chocolate Factory. You have to still follow the same rules of the game. Even like the most low econ jungler possible still needs to farm their camps, but they're just not the top most priority. After you farmed like a quadrant of camps, you can affect the map in some way. We were actually going over this in a scrim the other day where we were playing Nocturne, I think Ori mid. Sorry, yeah, Nocturne full cleared his camps. All 6 camps were dead. Walked over here to contest Scuttle Crab, and the enemy jungler's in this brush. He used that time, because he does have a little bit of time, to contest the enemy jungler in the brush, and then he got the Scuttle Crab. He then saw that the bot wave was stacking and went for a dive too.
So he's overstaying his tempo.
Yes, because what ended up happening is while he was setting up for this dive, his top camps were respawning. And then he was diving a Renata, and the Renata actually turned the gank, and I think Nocturne died here, and then they got another kill too, or they burned the flesh. Yeah, no, they killed the 80 carry and the jungler, and I think the enemy support lived and got like a double kill out of it. Meanwhile, this guy's camps are all respawning. So it comes in matters of like priority, right? Like, okay, you can ask Nocturne full cleared. There's nothing else to do because you full clear at like what, like 310? You have until 420-ish when these camps start respawning. So you have a little bit of time to work with, but you can't take treats forever. You take a little treat, you take the Scuttle Crab, and then you look for a small skirmish. And then once that's over, hey, I'm resetting. You don't care about this shit. You don't care about this shit. You want to cycle your camps as efficiently as possible. So that's an example of like how to shift your perspective a little bit when it comes to utility champions, is they can just take extra treats. Or they get more allowance every week or some shit. Whatever way that you find it most helpful to think.
They have richer parents.
Oh, there you go. A little gentrification of the jungle. I like that. Another aspect here is if you are somebody, I want to call back to what you said right here. When I asked you what you're doing to track your games, you said you like to look at win rate in your past 20 games. My problem with this is if you're looking at overall win rate in 20 games, I feel like what happens here is a lot of these games just start to blend together. And maybe you've played like 18 games of Viego. And I'm not doubting your memory and saying you can't remember anything from these games. But if you play 18 out of 20 games of Viego, you're probably not going to be able to remember every single important thing from that game. So what I recommend doing is starting at a very basic level, some sort of tracking for your solo queue games. And I'll show you something that one of my players on my European team did that helped him a lot. So this is something that he did. I mean, obviously this is from back in May, but what he would do, and I'll break it down bit by bit. He would put the results of the game, not so it was like the most important focus, but just to show, did he win or did he lose the game? Just so like posterity, right? Like, so he would be able to easily find it in his match history if he needed to. Then what champ he was playing, important because, you know, that's the champ you're playing. And then the champ he was versus. And as far as the note section, the important thing here is you're not bitching about your teammates. You're not like coping. You're not saying, oh, dude, if only my jungler ganked. He wants to point out one thing he learned from this game that he can take away to the next game. So he said he did some good trades early, but he disrespected minion damage and then not counting level up timers. And then he won the game anyways, but maybe if he wasn't tracking that, he would have just focused on the fact that he's a beast and he won the game. But now he's like, okay, shit, I did mess up some mistakes, and maybe another game he isn't able to carry because he's a little bit less of a beast. So, but now you can find habits, just write like 1 or 2 sentences. I did something, here's what I should have done better, and then cool. And then if you have a coach or if you have somebody, or maybe even yourself, we did this review status where if he reviewed it or if I reviewed it, we marked it reviewed. If he needs input, he would tag it as needing input, and then we would look at it together. And then otherwise he would put it as not reviewed, because sometimes it's like, hey, look, I got hard counterpicked, or I did hard counterpick, whatever. Cool.
Yeah, not every game is a revelation.
Exactly. Some games are like, even the games where you go 0 and 15 and you guys FF at 15 minutes, I guarantee you there's at least one small thing you can do to be like, okay, if I just did this one thing right, I wouldn't have won the game, but in another game, if I do this right, it will help me out. So that's what you focus on. And you can do this in Google Sheets. You can do this on, this is Airtable. You can do this in Notion. I've had other clients do it in Notion. But the important thing is, 1, you're putting intention, and 2, you're grabbing just one specific thing. Because that way now, if you look back and you say, okay, I'm looking at my past 20 games, what commonalities do you have? Okay, didn't respect him early. Maybe there's like, maybe if I looked in here, I actually haven't looked in here in months. Maybe there's a lot of commonalities where he's dying a lot early. And like, okay, so this will point to the fact that regardless of how much he's winning, you can still find something to focus on overall that might indicate, hey, I'm kind of like a weak laner, or maybe my level 2, I'm always getting killed level 2. Maybe I'm always dying to jungle ganks early. Maybe I'm always getting counterpicked or some shit. So this is a good place to start from.
Yeah, I really like that.
And you can get super complicated. Let me see if I can show you this.
So as a jungler, when I'm doing this, I would say like either like I full cleared or I looked for a level 3 gank. And then like how far into the game would I be giving notes? Because I think in this one I look a lot at, and it's a lot about like early lane. But nobody really cares how well I beat up those wolves early. So it'd be like the first like 15 minutes, like the first 2 objectives is usually like when I think of like early game transitioning into mid.
What I would recommend is, don't pigeonhole yourself to only looking at the early game. If there is something where you genuinely feel like, okay, sure, I made some minor mistakes in the first 20 minutes of the game, but at this like Baron fight at 22 minutes, if I just did this one thing differently, man, this game would have been so much easier. Like maybe you didn't ping assistance, maybe you didn't ward, maybe you didn't push a wave, push mid lane before contesting dragon. These are all, or Baron, these are all things you should make note of potentially here that are good takeaways. But the problem here, the way that I approach the game is, you always play the early game, every single game. You always play that first part. And mid game, obviously, too, like 95 to 99% of the time, you play that mid game too. But how many times are you going to get to like second or third Baron? Sometimes, but if you get really, really good and focus on optimizing the early game, well, then it'll naturally lead to better mid games. And then those will naturally lead to better late games. So I would focus on the stuff at the beginning of the game. And this is camp clear efficiency. Are you overstaying where you miss your camps respawning because you're fighting too much on champions who don't need to be fighting? Did you start in the wrong camp and path to the wrong side of the map? Did you lose track of the enemy jungler? Why did you lose track of the enemy jungler? Like that sort of stuff. I looked online, it said my champ's clear speed was 3 minutes and 10 seconds. I didn't finish my clear until 3:35, and I was late for scuttle and then late for my reset. Okay, cool. You can watch the review, see what you did wrong, and then boom, there you go. You're done with that review. Don't try and take 15 trillion things from each game that you watch back and try to improve them, because you're just not going to retain anything.
Yeah.
And then I think we've talked about in the past a lot of stuff, because I'm also trying not to give you 8 trillion things to do. We've already talked about how you can view the shift between utility and farming junglers. We've given you like a basic idea of how to track your stuff in SoloQ, what to pay attention to, what not to care too much about. What I'm thinking here is we already spoke in the past about the blocks of games, right? And how you play those blocks.
I think I've heard it from other like programs, but I don't think we have talked about it.
Oh, really? Okay. So if you're somebody like me, who I'm going to be honest, I struggle with a little bit of anxiety / imposter syndrome myself. So I've never gone on losing streaks or winning streaks before. I'm a very consistent player. I look like the NASDAQ, dude, the S&P 500, right? Like I'm slowly trending up like this. I'm not like, I'm not no penny stock trader going like this, right? So
Yep.
the way I do this is every time I queue up for League of Legends, I queue up for the specific goal of working on this, like a certain skill. For a while, it was learning Urgot matchups because like Bwipo was playing him a lot, because Quante was playing him a lot, because I find the champion fun. So I was like really hyper focusing. I want to learn all of Urgot's mechanics. I want to learn all his matchups. I just want to get better at laning on Urgot. So I would play the games with that intention. And then the way that I would actually play the games is, I think I'm stealing this from Coach Curtis. I would do like the block method where every time I queue up, I pretend like I'm in a tournament playing a best of 3. If I play 3 games, and then if I win 2 of them, I move on to the next best of 3. And then like, let's say, we're going to keep color theme consistent here. And then I play the next best of 3 and say, all right, I lose these, I'm done. So now the worst case scenario here is, I guess this wouldn't make sense because if I won this best of 3, it'd just be 2. But pretend that this is a X and this is a check.
Okay.
The worst case scenario is I'm now down 1 game's worth of LP for the day, but I've still put in 5 games, and all 5 of these are quality games focusing on this one topic. So I've gained knowledge and only lost a little bit of LP.
Yeah.
And if this is like, hey, Bach, best of 3s, this is loser stuff. I don't have a job. I'm not in school. I want to grind League. I want to go pro. Play best of 5s then. It's the same concept. The point is, you play the best of 5. If you lose a best of 5, well, you're done. It doesn't have to be for the day, but it should at least be for like 2 to 3 hours. And use that time to refocus, recenter, calm your nerves, go on a walk, go to the gym, eat some food, talk to somebody, listen to music, read manga, watch anime, and then go back with that same focus of I want to work on X topic in the like best of setting. BO. True? Best of 5. So that's how I treat that. Did any of that make sense or not make sense?
Yeah, I like that system. So how do you know? Do you just play until you lose a best of? Like, say it's like a really good day and I win 4 best ofs in a row. Like, is there like a time when, I guess that's like a personal thing. After like 9 hours of League, I'm probably not going to be playing as well.
If you asked me at the end of the season a couple of years ago, I would say just play. But there's some science that's out there that shows that after like 2 to 3 hours straight of an activity that you're focusing on, your attention span starts to fall off pretty drastically. And a good way to combat that is you go for 2 to 3 hours and then you see your attention span going like this. You knock it off here. You take like a 10 to 15 minute break and it resets your concentration for like another 2 hours. It's not going to be perfect, but that's a good way to, break it up into manageable chunks. But I also say like, yourself best until you don't. If you're somebody that struggles with knowing when you hit your limits or not, I would say, all right, I have nothing to do today. If I still win every single game, I'm still not going to play more than 9 games today. Because the worst thing you can do is just piss away all your progress or get tilted or like lose the plot where you've played 9 games thinking you're focusing on the topic that you chose for the day, and you've gotten a lot of valuable stuff in the first 7-8 games, and then every game you play after that, you're not able to put your full attention into it, you're not able to put your focus, and you're just playing to play now. Swap to an alt account, play norms, or just call it for the day. That's totally fine.